Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next session for the day. Yesterday, we discussed a lot about cashews, production technology, markets. Today, we will look at the prospects of other nuts in the Indian market. Ladies and gentlemen, business session 3 on India, almond, walnut and pistachio, the current scenario and the way forward. To moderate the session and to present on walnuts, I'd like to invite Mr. Gunjan Jain of VKC Nuts Private Limited of the Natraj brand fame. Joining him on the panel are Mr. Rajeev Pabreja, Managing Director for Commodity Trading Corporation, and Mr. Bhanushali, the founder of Ashapura Agrocomm Private Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, between the three of them, apart from cashew, they've snagged a huge market share of other nuts as well. So they are truly an authority, a monopoly when it comes to talking about other nuts as well, whether it's pistachios or almonds and other varied variety. Let me tell you a little bit about our speakers up here. Mr. Gunjan Jain, the Managing Director and CEO of VKC Nuts since January 1997, an exemplary entrepreneur and a stalwart business leader, spearheaded growth in the 4 generations old family company, VKC, when it was still a very small entity, steered the company leading from the front, helped to grow into India's premier nuts and dry fruit company in all verticals, imports, exports, processing, wholesale, modern retail, online and retail trade, thus establishing VKC as the undisputed market leader. At a time when Indian nuts and dried fruit markets was limited to cashews, almonds, pistachios and raisins, with his unbridled risk-taking tendency and enthusiastic approach about trying visionary ideas against conventional wisdom of the trade, led him to introduce several other products in the market, thus attaining the first mover advantage. We've got Mr. Rajeev Pabreja, BCom, BA-LLB and MBA in International Marketing. 31 years of experience in international trading and export-import. He's worked with for over 8 years as the head of Aditya Birla Group for export and import of agro-commodities and spices, and was also posted in London and Dubai for opening new branch offices by Aditya Birla Group. He has worked for 6 years as country head India and Middle East for UEL Group, Singapore, looking after 5 branches, exporting and import of wheat, sugar, pulses, dry fruit, coffee and spices. From the last 17 years, he's running his own company, Commodity Trading Corporation, dealing across a spectrum of dry fruit, spices, poppy seeds and petroleum byproducts. We also have with us on stage Mr. Bhanushali. Mr. Bhanushali is the Managing Director, the CEO of Ashapura Agrocomm Private Limited, one of the largest processors of almonds in the country, which he founded in 2013 as a first-generation entrepreneur. With more than 18 years in the industry, he's been a part of multiple business cycles. He's seen the industry up close and personal and understands the pulse of the market with in-depth analytical knowledge. He's led the panel responsible for setup of almond contracts on the Bombay Stock Exchange and is a dominant figure in the pan-India commodity spectrum. Prior to setting up his own venture, he began his career with one of India's largest MNCs, Hindustan Unilever's food division. So, with such stalwarts on the space, sitting right here, I think it's time for me to hand over the podium to the moderator, Mr. Gunjan Jain. Have a great session, everyone.
So, very good morning, all of you. The first morning sessions are a little difficult getting everybody in, so I hope most of the people are in. So, Srivastavji invited me to just moderate a session on the other nuts. I know most of you are from the cashew industry, but I think the industry is really changing now. I don't see any boundaries left. I think everybody in this industry is now trying to get into the whole spectrum of nuts and dried fruits. So whether it's a cashew trader, they are also now doing all nuts and dried fruits. Whether it was us, we started with walnuts, moved into all. We started with almonds, now doing all. So I think that's the segment that it is now, that it is more becoming a nuts and dried fruit industry than a specific walnut or an almond or a cashew industry as such. So I'll talk a little bit about the opportunity in India. We are all from here, but still understanding India, we are a strong economy. I think we are the only ones which are resilient to the current crisis that the world is going through, about 700. We talk about 1.4 billion, but actually the consumer for our segment is about between 400 to 700 million consumers. We have a very young population. These are the things that are of advantage to our industry, the nuts and dried fruit industry. Disposable income is increasing, media revolution taking place, all the social media apps and all are helping us talk about healthy stuff more. Families are getting smaller, which is leading to increased consumption, increased spreads. So this is the food industry at a glance. If we look at it, I put it up there to just get an idea of how the whole industry is moving when it comes to food, and in food, how the fruit and nut sector. So this is actually all together because that was the data we could get. There's very little data when it comes to just nuts and dried fruits. So we've tried to collate that. But that's how, if you'll have a look, that's how the industry is moving, the food one. And the purple one is the fruits and nuts. So you would see, if you look at it, that there is potential of a disproportionate growth that is going to happen. While the whole sector of food is going to grow, nuts and dried fruits, fruits and nuts as a sector is going to grow a little faster than the other sectors. The changing face of retail, we talk about how the shift is happening from the loose to the packaged commodity and stuff. We are seeing that change same in the industry where we are moving from the kirana to the supermarket model. So how the industry is changing now where we were. So 2 years ago where it was 98%, it's almost reached now 90% where it is in the modern trade. However, this is for all food stuff. But if we talk specific about nuts and dried fruits today, about 20% of what we sell goes through the supermarkets and the modern trade, and 80% is still going through the traditional kirana. What it tells us is that again, the growth graph is much faster when it comes to nuts and dried fruits. The acceptability of a new channel is much faster. The age thing that we talked about, we are among the youngest populations in the world. India today, I mean this is old data because this was 2020, but as of today, India's median age is 27.2. So we are probably the second youngest population in the world. In terms of a developing or a developed country, we are the youngest population. So that leads to a chance again for our category to have increased consumption spends. Now this is a very interesting thing that we saw. I think the data is 2023, they've made it 2018. Again, I'm talking here more about health and the health and wellness campaign that is leading to the increase in consumption of nuts and dried fruits. So we had a consumer survey where these questions were asked in 2008 and then 2023. So what changed in the 15 years? The first question was, I think fast food is all junk. Now, in 2008, when this question was asked, most of the people did not really believe that. They thought fast food is okay, it's good, there's nothing unhealthy in it. But if you look at the current scenario, there's an increased number of people who say that no, fast food is junk. I often worry whether my family is getting enough nutrition. So this was something again that lot more people now say yes to this question than they did in 2008, 15 years ago. Everybody thought that we were getting enough nutrition. Now they don't think so. I consider my diet to be very healthy. So in 2008, everybody thought the paranthas we are having or the bhaturas we are having is as healthy it can be. But now I think there's an increased awareness that we need more protein in our diet, we need more fiber in our diet, we need to have a healthier diet. So the fact that the acceptance has come that we feel that our diet probably is not among the healthiest, and that leads for consumers to try and consume newer food stuff, healthier food stuff. That again is where our category gains the most. Some changes in the consumption mindset where we are seeing now more experimental food, we are seeing fresh consumption increasing, we are seeing an emerging generation of Indian women that will spend any amount to get the best food for their kids because they neither have the time or the knowledge to actually now do a cooking. So there's that factor which their mothers, when they were cooking, they would always give them fresh food. So I find that a lot in people I talk to, where I find that the housewife or the working lady feels she isn't doing as much as probably the previous generation was doing. So because of that, again, the need to try and look at getting more and more healthy food stuff in the household is increasing. I love talking about this slide because this is what I say is the size and scale of the opportunity for everybody present in this room. I use it a lot. So if you look at that, this is the whole Indian population, Indian consumption, because of the various classes we have, that's how it moves, right from top to bottom. So that is the 1.4 billion population. The very interesting factor to see in this is that if you look at it, even international soft drinks like a Coke and Pepsi still have not penetrated down to the bottom of the Indian consumption pyramid. And our category as a nuts and dried fruits, we are still at the very top. What it tells us is, again, the size and scale of the opportunity in India, because one notch you move down, you're adding 40, 50 million consumers if you move down one notch in the pyramid. And unlike any other thing, it's not that if you are on the top that you will not be at the bottom. Nuts and dried fruits, as they become more affordable, as the awareness on health and wellness increases, I think there is an aspirational need where even a middle class household will look at trying to spend on nuts. So that's the biggest thing I see as an opportunity. We are probably among the lowest, we are today among the largest consumer of nuts and dried fruits in the world. But when it comes to per capita, we are probably among the lowest in the world. So that again talks about the opportunity that India has. So the top part of the pyramid, if you look at that, where till the blue, now that is where the nuts and dried fruit consumption ends in India. So I've broken it down to the next one. So that's where cashews are. Cashews are probably the largest consumed and the most awareness is around cashews. But one thing that I still find is that all cashew people are here. Even today, cashews are not perceived to be as healthy as other nuts. And I said that out loud somewhere. I said in India, the perception that a lot of people carry is cashews are not healthy. And India still consumes the largest amount of cashew nuts in the world. God help the world, if actually there's a big health campaign on cashew nuts, I don't think there'll be any cashews for any other part of the world. India would consume it all. But yeah, cashews, having the history and tradition, are the largest consumed nut in the sector. Then of course it's almonds, raisins. So if you look at that, exotic nuts, cranberries, blueberries, macadamias, hazelnuts, all these are still at the very top, very niche, the seeds. But that's the whole opportunity, that everything will move down notch by notch. And we'll see. So the more the commodities at the bottom, the moment they move one notch lower, they're adding a larger consumer spectrum to their need. This was just an idea when I talked about, I'll go back to this, that when I talked about this, now we are having a look at what an average Indian consuming household looks like. So yeah, if you look at those, right from the below poverty line to getting there to a middle class, to upper middle class, to this and to the old wealth. So we are, I think, probably more on the right side now in the top end, and now the more we are moving towards the left, that's where we'll see huge increase in consumption. So I thought I'll just give a brief on the category and the wonderful opportunity this category has. Over to Samiji to talk about almonds in specific and the position of almonds in the Indian industry. After that, we'll have Rajeev ji talk about pistachios, and then we'll take it from there on walnuts and any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Gunjan ji. It's a tough thing to match, his presentation skills and presentation both. So yeah, I'm here to talk about almonds, which, as he mentioned, is second most consumed nut in India after cashews. So yeah, to begin with, as you can see here, we all have grown up to the words that, eat almonds for a healthy heart and mind, and it's been passed on from generations to generations that you need to eat handful of almonds in the morning. Now that was how the consumption in India started, but however, now it's not the case. You consume almonds throughout the day and in different forms. What has happened in the last 40 years is that California has overtaken the global almond supply and is like 80% of the entire global supply. India is the largest export market of Californian almonds today. Traditionally, almonds used to be consumed more as gifting. The entire consumption was based on Diwali gifting. However, of late and in the last 10 years, the whole consumption patterns have changed and people are consuming it more as snack, on-the-go snack, in ingredients, and hence the market has grown exponentially. As you can see on the right side, total Indian B2B market of almonds is at around 10,000 crores with roughly 12,000 containers a year being imported. And at an average CAGR, a conservative CAGR estimate of 10%, we will be at 16,000 crores in the next 5 years. Now, how and why has this become, why the almond consumption has grown so much in the last 5 to 10 years in India? It's largely because of what has happened in California. California has almost tripled their production from 2005 when it was 880 million pounds to 2.55 billion pounds in 2022. They had reached 3 billion pounds 2 years back. So if you look at it, they have kind of increased their consumption, production manyfold. What that has done is it has made almonds a very affordable nut. It's become very cheap, probably one of the cheapest nuts in the world right now. And that has led to exponential consumption of almonds. When you look at the situation in India in terms of the policies and the production and the products, so India mainly imports non-Parel variety and independence variety from California, and from Australia we import non-Parel, Carmel and Prize varieties. In terms of duty structure, we have a flat per kg duty, which is pretty unique because not many nuts have that kind of a duty structure. And I think the industry is kind of pushing the government to have this kind of a duty structure in other nuts, especially walnuts. So as we speak, we have 41 rupee per kg duty on a California almond and 17 rupee per kg on a Australian almond. Now this 17 was actually 35 a few months back, but due to a trade agreement between Australia and India, that has been brought down to 17. In our recent tour by Shri Narendra Modi ji to US, they have removed the retaliatory tariff on almonds. So going forward, almond duty will be back to 35 per kg, which was the case a few years back. Now, along with that, if you look at it, Iranian almonds, which we all know as Mamra almonds, its share has kind of dropped significantly in the past 10 years. It's less than 5% now, I think, in the Indian almond scenario, mainly because it's very expensive. And that's mainly because Iran has never been able to increase its production. So it's a rare kind of an almond because of the scarcity that's available and of the notional value. So only the rich people, or the people who can afford a nut which is 3,000 rupee per kg plus price point, are consuming Iranian almonds. So largely today, it's a California-driven market along with some Australian almonds that come into India. Now, talking about processing of almonds in India. So almond processing is not a complex process like a cashew process, right? And it's also not a very high capex or high investment process. It's a very low cost and low margin business. So you see a lot of processors coming up in the last 5 to 10 years because it doesn't cost much to process almonds. Now what that has done is it has removed the entire margin that you would have in a processing of almonds, to the point that today an initial almond is more expensive than a finished product, which is the kernel. So it's reverse dynamics, and it's happened because you have more processors than the industry probably needs. Talking about the processing capability, so even with these cheaper machines, what India has been able to do is, has been able to produce very high quality almonds. It's low volume but high quality output compared to Californian processing, which can do high volumes, but it doesn't produce the kind of quality that you would want. So it has more chip and scratch than a regular almond that India would buy. Because of these dynamics and because of the duty structure where the government is levying higher duties on kernel imports, you see 95% of Indian imports being in shell form. So talking about markets and consumption trends. So basically, if you look at the almond industry, it's largely driven by two major markets. Initially, like 5 years back, it was mainly Delhi. So 80% of India's market was Khari Bauli, Delhi, right? But now after demonetization and GST, you see emergence of other markets. In the last 5 years, Mumbai has become a prominent market. So today, along with Khari Bauli and APMC Mumbai, it's 60-70% of India's almond trade and processing. But you can see that new markets, newer supply markets are opening up, like Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Nagpur, Hisar, Ludhiana, and many more coming up. Among the buyers, have the same set of buyers that Cashew would have, which is modern trade, GT, Horeca, institutions, and online. So online is probably now 5 to 8% of any industry's sales that happen through online. Here you can see, what has happened in terms of almonds. So almonds has always been a snacking nut. It's never been a big ingredient nut, unlike cashew. If you look at cashew's consumption, it's mainly in ingredients, and that's why you have this humongous demand of cashews, right? It goes in the gravy, Punjabi gravies that you make. You make a lot of sweets out of cashews. Almonds was never that. You had almond sweets, but it wasn't a big ingredient market. But last 5 to 7 years, you see almond consumption in ingredients going up significantly. Right, and that's mainly because of the low price of almonds compared to cashews and other nuts. So that has led to innovation in food products made from almonds. More recently, you see a fad or a trend of products like almond milk. For people who are lactose intolerant, almond milk has come up like a very good substitute to conventional milk. And then you have ice creams, confectionery industry, chocolates, more sweets being made out of almonds. So you can see that the consumption of almond is going up in the way, more in ingredient form and snacking as well, of course. Okay, talking about price trends, and this is pretty interesting, right? I mean, volatile, very volatile market like any other commodity market, and last 5 to 10 years have seen more volatility with faster communication, with WhatsApp, emails, like there is no barrier to communication now. Right, and any information, there was a lag to what others would get and what someone who is like a prominent player would get. Today, that's not the case. Within minutes, everyone has all the information. Now, what has that led to? It has led to very quick spikes and drops in pricing, and that's with all commodities. It's not very unique to almonds. It has happened with all commodities now. However, what is unique about India and the rest of the world, mainly developed and developing countries, if you were to break that into. So you look at the more matured markets like USA and Europe. Over there, the distribution is mainly modern trade and big format stores, where they have a considerable power to kind of determine the price of the commodity. So you see a very steady pricing at the shelf level in these matured markets. Even when the prices of almonds go down, they do not reduce their price. Typically it is like 6 months, 1 year to 2 years, where they really reflect the farm level prices in these matured markets. And because of that, you see a very steady demand graph over there. You do not see a 20% increase in consumption in these countries, mainly because the pricing is pretty steady. Of course, population and the economic dynamics are separate, but largely it's due to the steady pricing that these supermarkets keep. What you see in India is the complete opposite of that. We are very quick and agile in terms of reflecting the farm level price. So when prices in California go up or down, within days you see those prices reflecting in modern trade outlets, in GT, in all the outlets, where it's almost similar to farm level price, with of course the margins added, which are not very much in the industry. So that's where you see the consumption in India has gone up, because when the prices were cheap and are cheap, India or the consumers get that benefit. It's not the large supermarkets that keep that benefit with them, like in Europe and USA. Because of that, the consumption in India has probably doubled in the last 4 years, and that's mainly because of the pricing. However, if you look at the price chart, you can see consistent and steady drop in shelf level prices in India. This is in shell per kg terms, but on the shelf level it's converted to the kernel pricing, of course. Now what's the outlook, right? So pretty interesting what's happening with the current crop dynamics, wherein we have a report coming in on 12th of July, the crop report, So California is very organized in terms of giving out reports and data to the industry, and it's pretty reliable. There can be variations, and there have been variations in the past, but you can largely rely on the data coming out of California. So what has happened this past few months is that there were conflicting data coming out for the next crop year, wherein the crop is affected due to the frost and the cold climate in California during the bloom time. So the crop estimates have varied between 2.3 to 2.5 billion, and that has resulted in a lot of price ups and downs. So into the report coming in on 12th July, we kind of will get a clarity on how the pricing will go forward. If the crop is less than 2.35, we expect the market to go up. If the crop is more than 2.5, then we expect the market to go down. And if it's between, say, 2.35 to 2.5, I think the market should stay where it is. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah. Over to Mr. Rajeev.
Happy morning to all, because I'm talking about a happy nut, that is pistachios today. See, basically I'll be covering 5 topics. The total world production of the pistachios, then major world pistachio producing countries, exports by major producing countries, then world pistachio consumption major markets, and Indian scenario. What is the Indian scenario? This is the total world production. The world production is gone up 46% in last 10 years. The decade, you can see that overall in 10 years, the production has gone up. And the major share, the production share which is going with the USA. USA has been the major country which is increasing their production in a big way. China has been, Iran has been very, very stable. They have not grown so much. If you talk about Turkey, Turkey is stable, but they are mainly more consumer than exporters. This is the export by the major producing countries. If you see, the USA is growing their export almost doubling and doubling. In last year, 47 growth has been there in last 10 years. Iran has been very, very stable and have a very stable crop around 200,000 metric ton has been stable. Turkey is growing, but Turkey is always, I'll say that more consume, they have their own very big consuming country for the pistachios. This is the world pistachio consumption by the major markets. If you see, the biggest consumer producer is USA, and one of the biggest consumer is also USA. Then the second country which consumes is Turkey. Turkey, whatever majorly 75 to 80% what they produce, they consume by themselves. Iran produces almost, they consume of that 10 to 15% of their crop. That's there. Then China is one of the biggest market for everybody in the world, and for the pistachios also they have a very, very big hold. EU and UK has been, European countries have been very stable and have very stable growth they have been having. Middle East has a very small portion. India is one of the country which is growing in a big way, and now I'll show you how India growth is going on. See, the production has gone in 10 years to double, but if you see the growth of Indian consumption in last 5 years, from 13,000, India reached 28,000. So almost more than double in 5 years. Production has been in 10 years doubled, but consumption of India has been doubled in 5 years. Why import pistachios and what is the growth? See, India is a big vegetarian country and pistachios have a lot of protein, and even the promotions which come up, they say people consuming eggs or vegetarian people who are there, who don't take non-vegetarian, eat pistachios and it will give you quite good enough proteins. And it has got the maximum antioxidant which are good for other compared to nuts. It's a growing economy. Gunjan has already given a very good slide how India is growing, what is the population and how the way the Indian economy is going on. And especially even Samir has told about the tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities which are going, and also there is a special demand from the south of India. South India was not buying pistachios, but now there is a big demand in South India also. Global market challenges are there, but the overall consumption of the pistachios is growing worldwide and in India also. Worldwide supply of pistachio is growing, but still the demand is also growing equivalently worldwide. Now I will say India will be, in the next 5 years, India growth will be almost more than double what we are consuming, from 28,000 to almost 50,000 in next 5 years. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
For giving such detail on almonds and pistachios. And as we can see, the graph in India only moves up. Now to get to the devil nut, as we call it, the walnuts and the wisdom fruit. So basically what has happened, I'll just give you a brief dynamics on the walnut industry. Walnuts today are probably among the lowest priced of nuts. Reason for that being that suddenly there's been a huge increase in the worldwide supply. So I don't have all the data on the slides, but just to give you, China has become now, China used to be the largest consumer, but they've also become the largest producer. So in the last 10 years, China has grown its crop to a 1.4 million ton crop, which has led to a situation where for the next 3 years, there's going to be a huge disparity between supply and demand, and India, we will see a lot more supply than demand. This will lead to even lower pricing. So that's a great opportunity for a growing market like India. The only thing is the current tariffs of walnuts in India are very high. The import duty on walnuts stands at a whopping 100%. So because of that, we are not getting the full advantage of the price. I think there's a lot of talk with the government. We have a lot to learn from the cashew industry, how they are able to lobby with the government. So we are trying to get into that situation where we can try and get the tariffs down on walnuts. So China remains the largest consumer for walnuts. It is about 42% of the total world production now, with USA being second at about 750 to 800,000 tons. Then there is Chile, which is the third origin, which is about 150,000 tons. In terms of walnut in shell, I think this is just data I've given you most. The largest consuming market for walnut still remains China. So that again gives the scale of the opportunity. China consumes close to about 800,000 tons of walnuts a year. And India, where we've seen an exponential growth, this year I think it's estimated India will consume 70,000 tons of walnuts. Now this is a huge jump. Walnuts again, like pistachios, have grown very quickly in India. In 2015, the total walnut consumption in India was about 18,000 tons. So in the last 8 years, it has moved from 18,000 tons to 70,000 tons estimated this year. In this, again, just between last year to this year, India will add another 12 to 13,000 tons of consumption, from a 58,000 ton to 70,000 tons. Now, what has led to this is, again, an increased awareness on the health benefits, better pricing, and just the better access to better quality. Walnuts tended to get rancid very quickly. That has changed because of the alternate cycle now that Chile comes in. So we get a fresh crop in May, June, July. That leads to a fresher product. So where the Indian walnuts are coming from today, so the largest supplier now for India has become Chile. Last year India imported about 32,000 tons, and this year India would do about, the estimate is that we'll touch anywhere between 40 to 42,000 tons of Chilean walnuts. In terms of Indian, the total crop is about 35,000 tons, but some of it is exported. What remains in India is about 20,000 odd tons. This is all on in-shell basis. So that remains the same. India will consume probably all the lights it produces, which is about 20,000 tons. California last year was very low because of the quality. India did about 6,000 tons out of California last year. As it seems, the crop next year seems good. So India, I think, will do about 10,000 tons, which will lead to a total consumption of about 70,000 tons. So the biggest thing is that India would add about 12 to 14,000 tons of consumption in a year. So that's the big takeaway on walnuts from that. Prices will remain competitive. Prices for the next going 2-3 years forward, we'll see very aggressive pricing into India, and that would lead to a higher consumption. So in conclusion, I think everybody in this room understands where the category today stands, what the opportunity stands. I think we all are in a sunrise industry where I think the scope of growth is great. We are seeing a lot of change in the industry, what Proventus has brought, what Hapilo has brought. They're creating more awareness on the packaged product, which I think is overall good for any processor. It leads to just getting the commodity in a more organized sector, removes the volatility over a period of time. Hopefully, we will see the big factor of volatility getting removed in the industry. And I think that is in favor of any processor, any importer, any packer. If we have a more stable market, we'll see faster market growth, we'll see better earning potentials for everybody in the industry. Some discussions with the panelists on what can be the way forward, something on the presentation, and then I would invite questions from you guys if there are. Similar, Iranian pricing was, I think, very, very high. But going forward, as we've seen, Iran should have a good crop next year. We're seeing a very big crop coming out of Iran. We're seeing a big crop coming out of California. The indications that are there. So traditionally, India was more an Iranian pistachio market. I think the Indian taste bud was used to Iran. And we've seen that shift happening because of availability and price point. So going forward next year, when we do see enough Iranian availability and probably similar pricing, I don't think it will be that low, but probably similar pricing. What do you think the market would be? You think India would switch back to Iran, or what California has now taken will remain with California?
Thank you, Gunjan. See, price is factor for all the commodities. If you see any commodity which comes down in comparison from any other country, like if you are buying almonds, it's cheaper from Australia or from higher from there, or walnuts, suddenly China has changed. So price is a major factor for all the commodities. Even in India, cashews, if you're buying some origin is cheaper, it automatically gets the preference. Quality is there. India has been a traditional market and we have been always preferring Iran. There are a few reasons. One is the logistics, because from Iran if you buy something it reaches maximum 4 days to 5 days to India. And something you buy from USA, it takes almost 2 months. It's a long way, and you have to, the more your risk factors goes up when the delivery time is higher, and you have to calculate your risk factor. But when you are getting delivery, you buy and you get the goods delivered in 7 to 15 days, it's a big thing. Last year, Iran crop was bad and USA crop was very good. So that almost you can say there was a damage of 80%, 70 to 80%. So the prices were very high, and that's why there was a shift from pistachios of Iranian origin to US. But if you see of last 3 years back, there was a difference. Iran crop was very big, and almost 80% of crop came from Iran and 20% India consumption was from USA. Similarly, last year Iranian crop was bad, so 80% was American and 20% was Iranian. But this year both the crops are good. Seemingly till date both the crops are doing very well and good. But Iran has a lot of difficulties, and people like you all people are below, and they prevented, they all are changing because you have started branding. Once there is a branding, you have to go for Iranian and Californian. You have to divide your risk, and you cannot stop suddenly. Last year you were doing almost in branding and packaging or selling American, suddenly you will not shift everything to Iranian. But price will matter. This year Iran prices will come down, and I hope, I think so, if the prices remain, the crop size remains like this year will be shipped almost to 60 to 70% for Iranian, and 30 to 40% will remain to USA.
So yeah, thank you for that. And so basically what we are getting to is that the Indian consumer really doesn't care whether it is Iranian or Californian, it's the price that matters. I think that answers it. So Sameerji, on almonds, we talked about the fact that supermarket pricing in India is very, very dynamic. Correct. And that is true. And unfortunately, the supply chain here works the most efficient when it comes to dropping the prices, doesn't work when you want to move them back up.
Yes.
So that's something the industry has to work about. But if we were to look at going forward, we talk about stuff like estimates and stuff. How much does it really matter in the end to an Indian as an importer? It matters a lot, the whole thing. But as a consumer and as a market in India, the access to information and the talk about objective, subjective, the fact that the crop will be maybe 5% less or 10% less, do you think it should actually affect the domestic pricing as quickly as it does? What needs to be done? I mean, what the point I'm trying to make is, as an industry, how do we all work in an effort to try and move that speculation out? The shipment numbers come out. I don't know how many of you are aware, in almonds, we have the shipment numbers that come out of California. Now that cargo, and I think it's similar for cashews when the raw cashew nut shipment numbers come, but the Indian trader acts today on the cargo that will reach maybe 45, 50 days later. The availability of the cargo doesn't change as on basis. There's no big change. So what can we all do as an industry together to try to move this from that speculative angle to a little less speculative? I think we read too much. I have not seen any market in the world. I talk to people in Europe and them. I have seen not any market in the world that reacts so quickly to the shipment numbers that India does. So my thing is, what can be done to get the speculation out of it?
Well, I had mentioned this in my presentation that in India, most of the almond is consumed raw. There is no value addition. So it's like a pure form of commodity. It's purely Indian participants make money only when the market go up, right? I mean, that's how it works. Without speculation, we don't make money. At steady pricing, there is no margin. So there is an intrinsic speculation in all commodities, more so in almonds because one, the number of participants have just gone up, shot up exponentially. I mean, there are few importers who may have patience and not drop the prices very soon, as soon as California drops it, but there are so many other small, medium players who do not have the patience, and they kind of react immediately to California market pricing. And the two words that drive all markets, fear and greed, right? So when the markets go down, we are fearful that it will go down further and want to exit our position. And when the markets start going up a bit, we become too greedy and start buying too much and take the market up. So it's very difficult to control this unless we have more value addition on the product, unless we change the product into a different and more developed form, or you have more branding in the space where the branded product will not go up and down very quickly. But till then, I think we have to live with this. There is no way we can stop this.
So very interesting. We're talking about value addition and what can be done. And one of the things you started mentioning is almond milk, which is catching up. People are talking about lactose intolerance in India. I don't know, at our generation, if I were to say to my parents that I'm lactose intolerant, all I would get is a whack on the head. Go and drink your milk. But I know it's changing now. So where do you see that future in value addition? how fast do you think India will adapt? What is the future you see for these products, the value-added almonds? How fast do you think there will be a shift in the industry from the basic raw to the value-added, and how much percentage? So if you to have a crystal ball and look at it, let's talk 5 years ahead. Where do you think India as an almond consumption market would be in terms of raw and value-added, in terms of butters or milk?
I think today we will be what, 90-10, if I'm not wrong, 90 in terms of just pure raw consumption and 10% in any other form. I think it should go to 70-30 or 60-40 going forward. As you have this young population, you have already mentioned we have the youngest population in the world today, and the world has become flat, as we all know, with Instagram, with all the social media. You know, you see what's happening in US and you want to do it here. You see what's happening in France and you want to do it here. So you have this young population who is ready to adapt, ready to change, is more experimentative, wants to try newer things. And I think even the trade and the participants on the supply side have become more innovative, and you see products like, which I listed in the slide, like macaroons, almond croissant. You know, it's like so many things that you're now changing your nuts into and kind of selling. So it should be 60-40 hopefully in the next 5 years.
So that talks a lot. I mean, we are looking at on one side we are looking at the whole segment increasing, the total amount of almonds being increasing, and if we shift 40% of that, so we would see, I think what we are saying here is, the message is that there's a big future for value-added almond products into the country.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Rajeev ji, on a similar note, I saw that number up there, you put a 50,000 ton number.
Yes.
And that is for...
another 5 years.
Another
4 to 5
years.
years we will be doubling.
Okay. So, do you think, what would it take to make pistachios the next almonds in India? Can this 50,000 be 100,000 tons? What needs to be done? What efforts are needed? What does the industry need to do to maybe look at and try aiming 100,000 ton instead of a 50?
See, if you see the American APG, the American Pistachio Board, is doing a great work on this. You can see how they are promoting. There are two things. One is, we should be all thankful to USA, even the Iranians should be thankful. The duty used to be 30% on pistachios. But with the push of the Iranian, from the American board or American agriculture department, the duty came down to 10%. So it became very reasonable and feasible, because from 30% to 10% duty, and that also increased the consumption. Because if you see, we were talking about walnuts, we have 100% duty here. So if you imagine if there is 10%, how much you can expect the growth. Similarly, the way the APJ and the pistachio board or pistachio people are pushing the goods in here, and they're putting it, because being Indian a vegetarian country, they placing it so well that people who are vegetarian, they get a lot of protein from pistachios. They're putting banners, they're putting through Instagram, and they're doing a lot of advertisement, they're doing a lot of shows, they're telling through a lot of media, and even they are telling alternative ways of using pistachios. That is also one. The way the almond milk is there, they're using, like we use peanut butter, why not to use pistachio butter? So morning you can have a pistachio butter. They are trying to make, like we have cashew burfi, now they are pushing all the people for going for pistachio burfis. So the way they are pushing, and the Indian economy has a lot of spending power is going up, and they want a good nut which is good for the health and which is safer for them. And this is the only nut which is not consumed like a raw form. It is always roasted. So it is, people safer, the people say that it's more better than that and a good flavor. And cost-wise, it's one of the costliest nut if you see. But if you have seen in last 5 years, from 13,000 we have almost more than doubled to 28,000. I don't think so 50,000 or 100,000 is not, it can be easily reached.
Good, that's great news. So on your presentation, we talked about the fact now that the almond industry is getting decentralized. We saw that happen in the cashew industry a few years back, and we've seen how exponentially the industry has grown when it has grown in the geography where now you have probably pan-India presence of processors, and we're seeing almonds move in that. So what's your take on the decentralization that's happening in the industry? Positives, negatives, where do you think it will take us?
Well, it has both positives and negatives. Now, more positives than negatives because you have more decentralized power, not power in few hands. You don't want that 5 or 7 people dominate the industry. You want it to be spread and be more decentralized. So that is one. Second is you have more localized markets and hence the trade and the consumers get it cheaper. However, what it also does is it makes the entire import deregulated. So if India needs, say, 1,000 containers a month, you may have 2,000 containers come in a month because these new players want to become the biggest importers in the country and all. So there's no regulation to this, and consequently you have more supply than you really need, and that results to undercutting of prices and hence losses to the industry. So I don't know how you can fix this, but you cannot stop new people from coming. That's the future. That's how it's going to happen. But I think there has to be more India level representation and more education to this new participants who are in the same, like all industries, right? In cashews, pistachios, that you need to be mindful of how much you import or how much you can manage your cash flow, and will over imports lead to profits or losses to you. So there has to be this dialogue with the new players that come in, and I think there's the need of the hour is to have a body in India, because we are such a big market today for all the nuts and dried fruits, where this body would kind of educate all the participants on how to go about things.
That's a wonderful thought, and yeah, I think that's the direction going forward. We need the industry to now get to a more organized way and move forward with new and new younger players coming in. So that's right, if more education is there, everybody understands what to leverage, what not. There's money to be made for everybody in the industry. So I think, yeah, with that, I think we've covered most of it. If there are any questions from the audience, we'll be happy to take those. Ravi ji, pehla mic Ravi ji ko de do.
Yeah, we are sending a mic across, sir.
Yeah.
These are topics which are very close to my business. So if nobody is asking, then I have few questions to ask to the panelists. What is the intrinsic value of a product today, be it almonds, pistachios or walnuts, where you think that consumers will still get attached to the product? I mean, what is the level, what is the price of almonds today where you think that probably if this is the price, you see consumers running away from that point? So just to begin with this question,
So I'll just do that and then Swamiji, you answer, because I have a very different take on that. India, I don't think has price points. It's more the industry and trade that makes price points, because India is the only country in the world that will eat a 3,000 rupee a kilo mamra compared to, and we will cry about California being 600 bucks. I think a lot to do with this is, and it's not wrong, a lot of people, and I say that to the guys in the West, India is perceived at times to be a price market. And I say India is not a price market. I tell everybody, India is a value market. What you need to do is make an Indian consumer understand the value perception of it. So if you're able to convince an Indian consumer there's value in it, they will shell out that 3,000 bucks also. Of course, that's one segment of the society, but that exists. So at price points, I really think it's just about creating value perceptions. More than anything, we've seen enough market growth at slightly higher price points too. I don't think it has to touch a level, whether it's cashew nuts or almonds, where they are today. I think they need to move up, and still the Indian consumer would still pick those. I don't think there'll be any growth, I think any growth detrimental to that. But what needs to be understood is that if we are able to have certain levels of price which are steady, that will lead to a better supply chain, that will lead to demand. So from my standpoint, and I think everybody will have their own, from my standpoint, the way I see India today, there is enough opportunity where every segment can work. So I see India working at almost every price point. Having said that, of course, the lower price helps us get more impulse buying on the newer segment. But on a steady state basis, I don't see demand falling if the prices go up a little higher. Samiji, what's
No, I agree to you, Gunjan so I agree, and I also have another take to this, which is very valid to Raviji's question. I think 60-70% of the audience or the consumers do not change their preferences based on price, right? But there are 30% consumers who do, change their preferences based on the price. So tomorrow, if almonds were $1,000 at the shelf and cashews were 700, there will be a lot of consumers who will pick up that 700 rupee cashew vis-a-vis a 1,000 rupee almond. Plus, I think a lot of consumption is determined by the trade participants. So if you look at institutions who do innovation in products, they pick and they pick the nut which is cheaper because it helps in their product mix, and they push that product more into their product usage. So I think we are pretty inelastic and elastic both, so to say. That we will, even if the almond pricing were tomorrow to be $1,000, 20%, there will be a 15% drop in the consumption because there will be that swing consumer, so to say, who will move to other nuts. But 80% of your core will largely stay where it is, even if the prices of the product go up. Now, coming to what is the sweet spot in the almond pricing, I think it is where it is today. I think the consumers love these prices, and importers don't like it if they don't make money. But the consumers like these prices, and if we stay at these prices, I think you will see continued increase in demand in almonds at least.
So as an importer or the first line warriors, you guys import almonds or walnuts or pistachios. You basically do it for your profitability, for your gains. Consumers are secondary for you. So what is that price level where you feel comfortable in a crop that this is where I'm going to put a break, or I'm going to import, be it walnuts. You are not doing any work for the consumers. Largely you are doing a business to make money for yourself.
Correct. So again, this is very relative, right? Pre-2019, if you would ask any almond importer that $2 per pound in shell, is it a buy or a wait price? You would say it is a buy price, because historically that price was something that gave you money, and the pricing was always higher than that. Of late, last 4 years, today we are scared at a $2 pricing because we have seen much lower pricing. So in INR or rupee terms, we have sold almonds as high as 850 rupees on a wholesale level back in 2012-13, and today in 2023, when you look at inflation and inflation adjusted all of those prices, we are still at $550 or $600 a kg. So earlier we were comfortable with these prices because we felt that California will never go down below those prices. But now that we have seen California can bring the prices as low as $1.5 or $4 a pound, we are kind of scared at these levels. So we'll be more comfortable in the $1.5 to $1.8 parity. Anything above that today scares us, because in the last 4 years those prices have not given us or made us any profits.
Yeah, I think that's the range there is to it. However, I have a disagreement to a statement that you made, Raviji. Yes, I think everybody who enters business enters for the point of profit, and that's the whole capitalistic approach to life, and that's where the world is today. But I feel as an industry, we do care about the consumer, the whole industry, I'm not talking any specifics here, but the fact that we are in a health and wellness domain, and the fact that we are trying to bring in product that promotes health, leads to, at least for me, the belief is very genuine, and I do feel that we are working not just for the money part of it, but we are also working to get the healthiest of food options to an Indian table. So I really feel on the fact, and I feel that the whole industry is moving in that direction. Yes, money is a corollary of trying to be in business, and you want to make more of it, but at the same time, this industry is doing great and caring for the consumer to get the healthiest options to their table.
I will add to Gunjan, even if you see it in the COVID time, then the consumption of all the nuts went up because being the healthy nuts.
Good morning. My name is Shashi Shekhar. I run Nanopix Missionary for Cashew industry. My question is to the panel in terms of the consumption of pistachios or almonds are growing at a fantastic, very attractive rate, while cashew industry is struggling to increase their consumption from whatever numbers by even by a small single-digit percentage. What is that the almond and the pistachio industry is doing to maintain such good consumption rate YOY for many years?
So I think the biggest reason for that is the base. Cashews always had a much wider base, and when you start with a base of 10,000 tons in a pistachio or something, the growth potential is obviously much more when you have a much smaller base. And I think the largest factor that has led to growth in almonds and pistachios has been the awareness on health. I am surprised even today when cashews are consumed the amount they do. And I have seen it myself. I've seen doctors, I've seen senior doctors talk about a fact, go have a walnut or an almond, don't eat too much cashews, cashews have cholesterol. And I can tell you, the most educated of doctors, this I'm talking a doctor in a very major institute, I won't name the gentleman, but I had a big argument on that. And I said, sir, you really need to understand these facts, and these are the facts. Cashews are probably as healthy as any other nut, but I think if you're talking about the fact that how does the industry, cashew industry increase consumption now that it has plateaued a little, I think the biggest thing is health. Nobody talks about health in cashews, but as I mentioned in my presentation, if you start doing that, I don't think anybody else in the world will be able to eat cashews. India will consume. Look at how we've consumed in almonds and walnuts where the base wasn't there, the awareness wasn't there. Cashew is a historical nut in India. Cashew is a tradition in India. You'll find it at every kitchen. You'll not maybe find any other nut, but even in a lower spectrum, as I showed in my presentation, you'll find cashew nuts in a household. So today they're consumed with the perception they're not healthy. So as I said, if the industry really starts working on the perception that they're as healthy as other nuts, then I think the figures can be very, very different. So that's the thing. Industry has to then think about investing together on creating health awareness on cashew nuts. I think that is just not there. Yeah.
No, I agree to Gunjan ji on this. I think cashew, you all need to get together and start promoting the way almonds and pistachios and walnuts are being promoted. If you look at the efforts of Almond Board of California, APG, and now the walnut industry, there is very directed communication, and all the myths that are associated with cashews need to be broken. It's zero cholesterol until it is fried. So that needs to be communicated to the consumers. The consumers don't know this. It's been now in their psyche that cashews have high cholesterol. So that message has to go out, and that's not happening. And hence you see consumption being stagnant in cashews, I think.
I think if the industry is really serious on this, you already have the associations. There are, and there are a lot of stuff we've seen cashew industry get together on. Maybe a fund needs to be created where every processor puts in maybe 5 rupees a kilo or something, and that gets together to be a fund. You can go to the government and try to get some matching grants. That's what happens in the West. We've seen it in California a lot, how the industry is able to invest in marketing that they're doing, because it is the growers' money and the government pulls in. So if there is seriousness on the approach, I think the industry needs to get together, maybe create a body like that, create a fund, and then try to promote the health and wellness benefits around cashews. Yeah.
It is not available in any other dry fruits in world. It is having mono unsaturated fat, which is in otherwise called more technically oleic acid. It is very, very good for health, which is creating good cholesterol. There are two types of LDL, HDL. So the one is bad cholesterol, second. So accordingly, I want to know what is the percentage of the fat content, and is it in pistachio and almond and your product? I do not have any idea. So for that I am inquiring, what is the percentage of fat in your these three nuts?
So each nut has its own health profile and stuff, while all nuts, so what is to cashews is to other nuts, all nuts are very high in polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, which are good fats. All nuts help in increasing your HDL compared to your LDL ratio. So it's not just unique to cashew nuts, I think that exists across the spectrum of nuts. But each nut has a specific, I think, property to it, that it is very like for pistachios. It is today, pistachios is the main source of complete protein. So it's all the linoleic acids that are there, all the amino acids that are there exist in pistachios. So it's a source of complete protein. And we've done a campaign, as much protein as an egg, which has worked well. When it comes to almonds, again, all those exist, but high in vitamin E, high in certain things. When it comes to walnuts, high in antioxidants, very high in, walnut is the main non-fish source of the alpha-linoleic and the omega-3s. So each nut has its own property, and that's what these guys have picked up on, advertised on that. Pistachio, we're talking about complete protein. Almonds, we're talking about the whole wellness thing. So similarly, cashew, I think, has some great properties. Vitamin K, we've talked about monounsaturated. So I think the biggest thing right now for cashews is just letting the people know that it is no cholesterol and it is good fats. I think nobody, people who are eating cashews are still not aware of that. The doctors are not aware of that. So I think the first step is the medical fraternity. What you just said, sir, I think that's something that the doctors need to understand and say it out loud. And I don't see that happening. So that's the thing. But I think the whole category of nuts and dried fruits, everything has a unique health benefit, and generally health and wellness around it.
We need to have a very strong board or a strong association to put forward the words, because the word of mouth passes. So you will have to have a very strong association who can promote you, who can put your things forward, and also a board which can promote your product in a proper way. How you promote it, how you present it.
And the consumption is also increasing equally. And it is an industry which is very high on labor because it's a very delicate nut. How do you think the processing of walnut, especially in India, is going to go, and how the industry is going to take turns?
So walnut processing in an industry has been very old in India. We've probably been among the first to adapt to technology when it came to technology, because of the fact that walnut industry initially was just an export-oriented industry. So I think walnut industry was the first one to have installed laser sorters and vacuum packaging way back in the 90s when they were unheard of in India. When we installed our first laser sorter, I mean the likes of ITC and Britannia had not thought of, so we had people from ITC visiting to see the laser sorters and stuff. So as an industry, I think walnuts has already been evolved when it came to processing. The only thing that is happening now, and again a big dynamic, is that this industry is also decentralizing. Like what we saw in cashew nuts, what we are seeing in almonds, same walnut is now a very, with imports becoming more and more relevant than the traditional Indian crop. The industry is really decentralized now. So at the new centers, I think it's very nascent. It's still all being hand cracked. It's being sorted just by hand. I don't think the amount of scale has reached where a lot of people can put in a lot of capital investment in terms of sorting infrastructure and all, because right now it's become very decentralized and the spread is very wide. We have, today I was looking at the number, there is a 287, the last number I saw, there are 287 importers of walnuts in India. So that's how decentralized the industry has become, and that's similar for almonds with 400 plus importers into India. So I think it will be time. I think we'll really need to grow in scale in terms of the volumes India imports before I think we can really look back at getting into more technology. That's what I feel. In the walnut industry, I feel we've gone back 10 years where we've moved to hand sorting over the state-of-the-art equipment that we guys were using, because the industry is just decentralized. Too many small players, too many back-of-the-shop cracking outlets. So all that has led to a much more decentralized and a much more smaller processing infrastructure.
Yes. Hello, to all the panelists. My question is regarding the almonds. My name is Abhishek. I am from ETG Group. So, sir, my question is that almond market, the price is determined majorly by the numbers released by ABC, which releases the number of the shipments report, which is an indicator of what is the demand. but that is a very primary level of the demand numbers that they get. We as an Indian importer, we are the largest market for the almonds. How do we come up with a matrix which is also a secondary demand of what actual consumer demand is, so that could be a leverage for us also to understand what is the S&D gap in domestic market, and so that we can price our purchase also better, and so that everyone in the industry has a better purchase and sales.
Sorry, I think I couldn't hear you properly. Can you?
Okay, I'll repeat my question.
So let me do that for you. So the gentleman is basically saying, again, the point being that we react so quickly to the shipment numbers and stuff because they have data.
Correct.
How does the industry, this side, the consumption side of the industry in India, create some kind of a data matrix that that the industry gets access to that information, that this is the amount of almonds that have been consumed for this period, to try and get that?
It's very difficult to, I think, get that data on the demand side. It's purely what containers come into India and consumed is what we can infer on. But I think your question is more on the pricing side, that you can, based on what reports you get from California, the prices move up and down here because we do not know whether 600 containers is enough for that month or 1,000 is enough for that month as an import data.
No, so majorly it's like price is determined by that data, and a lot of offload containers are being floated, and those numbers are also in the shipment report.
Correct.
Which probably is not the actual representation of the data demand. So, but price move basis those data. So
Okay.
how do we?
So any which ways, the first line of data that comes in is a primary purchase. It's not what is consumed by the consumer. Now, offload containers are something which are not priced containers, meaning the trade has not happened, but the product is physically moving into the country. I think as an industry, we are looking at the physical movement only. It's not what price has been determined between a buyer and a seller. We are more worried about whether 600 loads that have been shipped in this month are enough for us, are less or more. Pricing, okay, the sale price, we all know this. The sale price is not in our control, right? We are all slaves of the market. We cannot control our sale price. So it doesn't matter what price you have bought, right? So whether it's offload or whether it's like pre-traded container, it doesn't matter, because you control your price and determine your price based on purchase price. So I think it's mainly what we are tracking with those data points is the physical flow only. And if it is within the range that we feel is the consumer demand is there for those containers, we feel it is equilibrium or up and down. But it doesn't matter whether it's offload or not offload. We do not agree with that practice. Overall, we do not, as participants, we may or may not, we may have our own views whether offload are good for the industry or not. But it really doesn't matter, because what pricing you have determined with your exporter really doesn't matter to the overall scheme of things.
Well, those goods are anyways going to physically come in India any which ways. So that doesn't change the fact what demand it would change, because physically that quantity is going to come in India, it's just the price. But yeah, I think we've had a very, very interactive audience. I've not been subjected to so many questions in a lot of sessions before. So I think I'm glad that we have such an interactive audience and the industry is moving in that direction. So thank you so much for a wonderful thing.
Well, let's have a nice round of applause.
Thank you, Sameerji and Rajeevji, for wonderful inputs. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
It does seem like there's a very fair amount of interest in your commodities as well in this audience. Thank you, Mr. Sameer Bhanushali, sir, for your time on the stage with us. And I would like to request Mr. Selvamani, the treasurer of TNCPA, to please join us on the stage. Present a memento to Mr. Gunjan Jain. Let me tell you that we have a super interesting